every autobiography, every biography, somebody went through some shit and they dug themselves back out of that hole and they kept going. So victimhood is a stage, in my opinion. And how that relates to this crazy world is this crazy world will victimize you. It will. People will come at you. People will say things. People will do things. People will steal. People will cheat. They will lie. They will break their word. This is going to happen somewhere along the line. If you put yourself out there enough, guaranteed.
Yeah.
So what are you going to do? You're just going to get better at holding people accountable. You're going to get better at trusting your gut about who you're dealing with. You're going to get better at following your heart. This is Way of the Artist with Brandon Colby Cook and Evan Schulte.
Identifying your blocks and demystifying your struggles
so that you can claim your own path
and make your life a work of art.
It's a crazy world out there, my man. Crazy world. And that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about how to stay centered in a crazy world because, you know, everybody's got their own stuff going on. The world, you know, culture, society, it's all going to push on you. It's all got its demands. People want what they want. Groups want what they want. There's societal expectations of who you're supposed to be, what you're supposed to do, how you're supposed to think, the right thing to say or do or whatever. So, you know, this is what this talk's about. It's about staying centered in a world that wants to push and pull and make you do certain things to fit in or to feel accepted or to feel liked or loved or whatever. And as an artist, you know, you said this actually before our talk, and I'm just going to say it for you, but it's, as an artist, you're 1 foot in and 1 foot out at the same time.
Yeah.
And that was a good way for you to put it because you're 1 foot into this crazy world and you're 1 foot out of it. And you're 1 foot in it so you can experience and be a part of it and relate and I think be in rapport with people that are caught in it. But at the same time, you're 1 foot out, and I think that's what makes a person an artist. That they can see it. And I think if you go too artist and you don't let yourself be 1 foot in this crazy world, you just get disconnected. No one can relate. You're too far out there. But if you're too much into this crazy world and you're not enough 1 foot out, you know, then you just get caught and wrapped into it all and you become it. And you can't separate yourself from it.
Yeah.
And it can just take you like a body of water, you know, like a current or a river.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because like that when that came up, that wasn't necessarily, I wasn't thinking necessarily of this conversation specifically, but it's really pertinent and something that I just kind of realized within that conversation of like, yeah, this is kind of something that the artist does, like what a real artist does, and that's sort of the challenge that's presented. But there's some really great things, and it's actually it's similar to a lot of an idea that I've come across in like a lot of sort of, I think, Buddhist or Eastern sort of concepts, which is this idea of being in the world but not of the world. And the artist is kind of like that whole straddling that line of being in sort of the world and society, but also being out of it. You have to occupy both of those spaces. You have to have an understanding of both of those spaces, because if you fall one side into too much of that sort of societal expectation and conditioning, you know, what you create it's all going to be so derivative. It's going to be cliche. It's not going to say anything of importance. You know, it's always going to be playing it safe. On the other hand, if you're completely removed from it, you're not going to communicate to anybody. Nobody's going to understand what you're saying, you know, and people may never understand what you're saying, right? Like, even though there might be some value that's in it, but you become less a person of the world. You become less relatable, and then your work speaks to no one, and that's kind of defeats the purpose as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think artists can make work for other artists when they get too far out of balance. When you just hang out with artists and everything's art, and you're just defiant against culture and society and everybody and the way they do life, you can get to the point where the only art that you're creating is for other artists.
Yeah.
And really,
And a very select group of artists.
yeah. And some artists might appreciate that, but that's really not what art is for. It isn't to impress your colleagues. You know, I went to a play, this was a year ago or several months ago, and a good friend of mine, very good actor, put up a play. And I sat and watched this play. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Thought it was very entertaining, very fun. Great experience. Glad I went out to the theater. Went home happy and all of that. I remember at the end of the play, I went up to all the cast members and I was just like, yeah, great job. Excellent. Right. And he was like, yeah, you know, I don't know. Like, and all he was talking about was he was just talking about whether other people in the industry would like it. And I was like, man, it's entertaining. Like, as an audience member, this was an enjoyable play. This is a success.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But like, he was talking about like was the acting good, or it's like, honestly, man, none of that is relevant. Like what happened there was you put up a play that was actually a great theatrical experience. Like, this is why we go to the theater, like to be entertained, to get caught up in a story. Like, and I'm a director and an actor and a screenwriter, and I can sit back and kind of sit on my little horse and judge,
pick things apart, and this
everybody
is
can.
I would have done it like this, but
sure,
yeah.
But I went to this, and I went to this, and I'm gonna sit back and I'm gonna enjoy a play, and it was very enjoyable. But what's interesting to me is that his biggest concern was really just impressing his colleagues. He was kind of not really taking in the fact that, in my opinion, maybe he did.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, at least in that moment, he wasn't fully taking in the fact that he had put up a play that, was a packed audience and everybody kind of walked out enjoying it. But his, I think, insecurities, in my opinion, of course, were just that it was more about the acting. It was more about like was it good for an industry? Like, and I think that, when you're caught up in the film industry or anything, I'm sure it's the same in the music industry or anything, but like it's so easy to make it all about doing the technique right and doing things that your acting teacher or someone would approve of.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, if you're going to put up a play or you're going to make a song or you're going to make a painting, it's not about trying to impress all your colleagues. It's about actually having people in society and culture who aren't necessarily artists have some kind of enriched experience, or entertaining them, or doing something like I feel like you can have and this is my point, you can have a play that's done technically great. All the acting it's just exquisitely emotional and all of that, right?
Yeah.
And it's like someone could look at it and go, bravo, so brilliant. But like no one was entertained. It was just like a bore, Or you could have a play that was very entertaining, very like emotionally engaging and moving, and maybe technically it wasn't perfect. Maybe there were some mistakes. That's the play I'd rather see. I'd rather see the one that takes me on an experience. I don't care if your acting is perfect or you said the line with the right articulation, but if you take me on the experience, that's your job. And I feel like this, navigating this crazy world and staying centered in it, is being centered enough to know that, okay, you are an artist and you have technique and you're working on that, but your job and part of what you're trying to do is to connect with society and culture.
Yeah.
Right? And to bring something to society and culture, ideally, if you can, and help move and change.
Yeah.
Or shift, people's perspective and open up their lives and create something good for them, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's arguably even more important when you are offering criticism. When you are on that place of I'm standing on the outside and I'm seeing something on the inside of it that is troubling.
Yeah.
Right? And in your work, you're drawing light to that. You're criticizing that. And it's in those moments that it's really important that you still have that foot planted with your community, with your society, because it really is that's going to show you how to communicate it, right? Like that's really what it's all about, is how are these people going to be allowed inside of this thing that you're seeing, this thing that you want to draw attention to. You know, in many ways, that's all it is. It's a matter of communication. That's what staying connected to your society is all about. So that people still understand you.
Yeah.
You know, that you're not completely off just doing your own thing, because what's the point of that either?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. I mean, there's so many things that I've seen where it's been technically really good, but they missed the point. They missed the point on what it's actually supposed to do. And this is the thing, you know, it's a crazy world and you're trying to stay centered. And I think that it's often, from an artist point of view, is talking about not conforming, being non-conformative, and not getting too caught up in culture, and standing out and being an individual, or having your true authentic expression, right? From the artist perspective, these are very important things that we're all trying to work on and develop. But from, say, more like, I'm just going to use this term for the time being, but say like more like the common person, right? You're not necessarily trying to be more out there. You're walking through the world and you're trying to figure out how to navigate it and how to fit into it and how to work with it. You know, artists kind of have the luxury of, like, when you take on that role of the artist, you take on the role a little bit of going against it all, you know, of being a little bit defiant, especially, like, maybe I'm biased, but it's because, like, the filmmaker side, like, filmmakers are notoriously very much like teenagers, very much defiant of society. Like you'll run into filmmakers, they're a certain breed, all of their own, but they tend to be, in my experience, very defiant. Like, they have a vision. Like, real filmmakers, like people who are real directors, usually have a vision that's just so one of a kind, and it's so defiant of everything that they're willing to fight for it, you know? And it's this kind of, and it's good, you know, but that's why you have like producers and people who can kind of reel them back in to say, like, okay, like, hey, like, let's make this grounded. Let's make this connectable to the audience, because sure, you have this vision and this idea you want. And sometimes it goes too far. You know, sometimes the director either loses everybody by taking it too far, or the producers reel it in too much. And, you know, finding that balance of like how much can you kind of straddle that, where you kind of connect with everybody, but you still take them somewhere new.
Yeah, no, I think that's essential. I'm pretty sure that we're still on topic with this one. It's like how to, you know, in a crazy world, right?
Well,
how to stay centered in a crazy world. I feel like we're kind of, this is all related, but we're kind of dancing around this a little bit. So,
well, who says we're not crazy?
Yeah, no,
you know what I mean? Like, like everybody's a little bit crazy, right? Like, everybody's a little bit, they're on their own plane of narrative. You know, everybody's got their own life. Everybody makes sense of things in their own way. We might do things similar, but we all are individual. Like, and here's another thing. I was listening to this, actually, Joe Rogan podcast, and I don't remember who the speaker was, but they were talking about how, you know, there's certain insects and animals that will literally transform to their environment. And he was talking about this one grasshopper in, like, I think it's Africa or something like that, where it will transform into the locust. It will actually change. It's like body will physically change and all that, right?
I feel like this is like Brett Weinstein or something. He was a biologist.
It could be, honestly. I don't know who Brett.
Yeah.
I never saw him. I never saw or listened to his whole podcast, but I usually watch bits of a lot of the Joe Rogan.
They are very long.
Yeah, but I enjoy them. But I'll get highlight bits. And anyway, one of the interesting things they got into is they got into split personality. And they were talking about how they were just venturing down this road. And I did quite a bit of research on this because I studied psychology. And one of the things I learned about split personality is there's also another thing called dissociative disorder, which is when you disassociate yourself from a certain environment. And usually people have split personality or dissociative personality trait is that they were dealing with a very traumatic or difficult situation. So they disassociated themselves with it and they kind of went to their happy place. Some people will black out, kind of like, or bury a memory, never be able to remember it. Or they will literally like be in a really traumatic experience and they will kind of go to their happy place. Well, some people, when they actually go to their happy place, will literally take on a whole other personality, and it's their way of avoiding this pain that they experienced. And the interesting thing about it, though, is that take it kind of more from a basic level. With your mom, you're going to be a certain way. With your friends, you're going to be a certain way. With an authority figure, you're going to be a certain way. So you have these roles that you'll play, and you'll do that dance. Right. That is the societal dance. That is the cultural dance.
Yeah.
And we dance differently with different partners. And so we have differences just in how we'll be with other people. Then we have differences in how we do everything from one person to the next. And then not only are we different with different people, but we're different in different cultures.
Yeah.
And there's all these differences. So, I think part of staying centered is like, who are you in all these differences? Like, what is the one thing tethering you together? Like, you still see yourself as the same person, right? You don't see yourself as changing. You don't see yourself as split personality, although some people theoretically split entirely, apparently. The literally, like, physiological things will change about them, apparently. But what is the thing that's tethering you together? And I think that's part of, like, staying centered in a crazy world, because it is crazy. Like, you will literally adapt to whatever environment, person, relationship, situation you need to, and you might not be the same person. So what is the thing that holds you together? And what is the thing that's not going to just make you like a chameleon, where you're simply just going to be at the whim of whatever you're dealing with or whomever you're dealing with?
Yeah.
That's kind of the point of this talk, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's like, what are your own guiding principles that are, the things that are within your nature of being? Those are the things that we need to be in close contact and relationship with, because those are the things that are going to keep us strong in the face of expectations, external expectations, because we're going to be lumped with those our entire lives. People are going to have a certain idea of how we're supposed to be, how we're supposed to act, all of these things. And that's really crazy making, like that's,
oh yeah,
for like in a bizarre kind of way, it's like we feel this pressure to conform to the things around us. And it actually makes me think of a quote from Krishnamurti, where he said, "It is no sign of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society."
Yes, that's great. He said that?
Yeah.
I heard that before. I didn't realize it was him.
I'm pretty sure it was him.
Yeah.
Now you got me second guessing.
Either way, it's
a great sentiment.
Yeah.
And a great piece of just thought-provoking wisdom. But it's when we are living under the expectations of whoever it is, but we've all been born into some kind of society. There's no getting around that. If you're listening to this right now, you are in a society that has its own sets of rules and customs and expectations and pressures, that you're supposed to live by. And they're all made up, more or less. Some of them are sometimes based on some pretty good ideas. The problem is that ideas all start to break down at some point in time. Like their ideas are an abstraction that come out of, not nothing, but they can't answer every single circumstance and situation. And when we just try and live to these ideas and ideals all the time, it leaves us in a place where we're unable to respond to present moment situations. And that kind of stuff creates anxiety, it creates stress, it creates anger and resentment and all kinds of stuff that just doesn't make us feel good.
Yeah.
And that's all the stuff together, that's crazy making.
Yeah.
You know, but bizarrely we feel that we need to conform to that so that we can stay sane. But it's not through that conforming to it that works against to our own nature, that works against our own calling, our own, you know, what we feel, yeah, like called to do. Those things can sometimes contradict with that. And so we end up going against our own nature. And that shit will drive you nuts.
Yeah. You bring up something that's really valid, is what is your nature? You know, what is in your nature? You know, that you are not exercising and expressing. There's a quote, I really like it. It's, "You had purpose long before anyone had an opinion." And I believe that was Maya Angelou who said that. I think I could be misquoting who said that, because I read a lot of quotes. But you had purpose long before anyone else had an opinion. I really think that's really good, because, you know, the crazy makers are kind of the people who have an opinion of what your purpose should be. I mean, for anybody to tell you what your purpose is, for anybody to tell you what it should be, or what it has to be,
or what your life is supposed to look like.
Yeah, that's crazy making. That's crazy making.
Yeah.
Like, you don't know. And they don't know.
And they don't know.
They might think they know. And here's another thing. Here's a little humility check. You don't know either. So check yourself. You don't know. You know, people, they go through life, man. And I'm seeing this around a lot in my experience right now, as people go through life, married for a very long time, all of a sudden, you know, relationship explodes. Something happens, something changes, people change. All of a sudden, everything you counted on, everything you think was what it was, you know, money can come and go. You know, maybe you based your life around money.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, boom, your whole world explodes. And there's an absurdity to it all, right? Like, there's an absurdity to this life where we convince ourselves that we can do things that will assure things, that we can do things that will be forever, or be till the end of the time that we live for, or live through our life or through generations. And it's not really that way. You know, it comes and it goes and it shifts and it flows and it all can change. And, you know, when someone thinks they have it figured out, it might look like they have it figured out for a very long time. And then all of a sudden, boom, all of a sudden it's like, wake up call, you don't. So you got to be very, very careful about listening to anybody who says that they know the way. You know, it's funny that we call this the artist's way, because I think at the bottom of the line, the thing that we discovered really is that everybody has their own way. And it's all about finding that. But the only way you're going to, and no one knows what it is for anybody, but that's the beauty of it. You get to find it in this life.
Yeah. It's yours to find, and it's only yours.
Yes.
And
you know, and it's
important that we don't think of our own way as the way or for somebody else. Like, it's at best we can help somebody else to find their own.
Yes.
You know, and that's really what this
and finding
podcast
our way
is about.
can be an inspiration for someone to find their way.
Yeah, but it's not going to
our
look the
way
same.
Is not their way.
Yeah,
and our way can only inspire their way.
Yes, and we shouldn't even hope or want for people to go the same way as us.
Right.
You know, we shouldn't even want that, because that would be a disservice to them.
Right.
And it would be a disservice to us too. Right. It's also a dishonoring of ourselves and somebody else when we put that kind of expectation. It's like, well, this is what it's supposed to look like. I mean, just to, you know, piggyback off of something that you were saying there is, you know, we've heard that story. How many times do we need to hear that story of, the person who kind of had it all, the person who, it doesn't mean, crazy like fame and fortune, but even just from the, it's like had the job and the family and the house and the, like you had the stuff that you were expected to get by a certain period of time. And yet there's still this sense of emptiness. There's a sense of wanting. There's this, and it often transforms into like a major crisis of some kind. A marriage ends now, a job is lost now, and it throws our lives as we knew it into chaos. And then on the other side of it, there's this realization, it's like, wow, I was going after things that I really didn't care about, and suddenly there's this renewed sense of purpose and connection, because the person was never really truly listening to their nature, their own nature. They were listening to the expectations that people were putting on them, or that our society puts on us, right? And I don't know, it never goes away. Like I find that, as I get older, I find myself suddenly confronting new expectations of what my life is supposed to look like, where I'm supposed to be at this point, and what other people might think of me. And that's like, it's an interesting thing to be aware of and to confront it, because those are all, like you're saying, opinions that have just been made up, invented about how your life is supposed to look. And there's no real logic behind any of it necessarily. I mean, like, I understand it. I understand where this stuff comes from, because I feel like we've been dancing around this a little bit. But like you were saying, that it gives us this sort of sense of that there's something that's lasting, some sort of sense of keeping something. But the reality is that each and every single one of us are inevitably, uncontrollably hurtling towards this thing called death. There's no avoiding it, right? But that's exactly what a lot of these things are trying to do. It's trying to create this illusion that we're avoiding it on some level. Just don't think about it. Just don't think about it. Just don't think about it. Get your house, get get all of this stuff, and just keep yourself busy, and don't think about this thing that is coming. Right. But really, and again, I'll bring up my man Krishnamurti right now. Like he has this idea, and he's not the only one, but it's like bring death right here, right now. Don't push it away. Don't push it off to some later future date. Like, learn how to die right now to everything that's come before. Because we are constantly in this process of living and dying. Like we have cells in our body that are dying every single second. There are moments in our lives that they come and go, that our breath, in and out. It's a process. These are all processes of living and dying continually, over and over and over again. And it's this resistance to that. It's this trying for that to not happen that makes us do things and fall into these expectations and these crazy world ideas, because out of some sense of safety, but inevitably it prevents us from really fully living. It prevents us from fully living what is in our true nature. That was a bit of a rabbit hole. I know I just went there, but
you went there.
I felt like it had to be done.
And it was good. It's an illusion. It's an illusion to push death away and pretend you're not going to die. It's an illusion. It's a comforting illusion, and we play it. I had a friend, a very close friend of mine, when I was in college, university, and I was 21. He was 23 or he was 24. I think he was 24. But he and I were creating a show together. I've shared this story before. I'll share it again because it's relevant. But he had just graduated. He had got his degree from university. He just got accepted into film school. I had gone out and I had made a few films. My film career was kind of beginning to blossom. It was just beginning to like start to become something. He was kind of waiting until he got to film school and he was going to learn some things and then he was going to really express. But we had a show that we were kind of doing, and I was much more of the kind of person at the time who was a little bit like, because I was so like, I'm going to fill in a little backstory. I feel like this is relevant. My father was extremely against me being a filmmaker. Just thought I would end up destitute and on the street and like broke, which, you know what? I get it. I get where he was coming from. You know what I mean? Listen, I came close, but that didn't bother me. I was not, it was still worth it. But for me, being a filmmaker was not supported. It wasn't encouraged. It was nothing. So for me, I was kind of like at this point in my life where I'm like, I just have to do this, because if I don't do this, like if I don't take the reins and try to do this, like nobody's helping me. Like, he was very like much like sabotaging my career, even like he was just really adamantly against it. So I had gone out and I was making my shows and doing some little things and, whatever, getting a little bit of traction. And my friend, he had kind of become my partner in crime. Like he was helping me, but I was definitely the front man, kind of pushing things. But he was going to go to film school. He was going to do the traditional method. He was going to get a full education in university, go to film school, get a proper film education. Then he was going to set himself up, make his films. Well, I'm 21. He's 24. We just had our birthdays, so I can't remember. We're either 2 or 3 years apart. I just don't remember at this moment. But I get a call. This is a month after, and my friend was like, "Do you hear what happened?" And I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "He's dead." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He got hit by a car. Just T-boned at an intersection. They were just driving through and a truck hit their car and both dead. Him and this girl. And I was devastated. I remember for like 15 minutes just sitting there like absolutely stunned about the information. And then all of a sudden like I started breaking down, and the next month or so, I was walking around in my life just in the daze. And I just remember going, holy hell, like this can all just end. Like this could all just be over. And, he never even got to do what he wanted to do. Like he was like doing this and then doing that and then doing this to like finally get to the point. And I'm like, fuck it, man. I'm just like, fuck it. Like, let's just do it. And I literally drove down to LA with my friend. We knew nobody. We just drove down and we hung out for 3 weeks and made some connections and did some stuff, and then I just started pushing. And and look, I'm not going to say that my film career blossomed into some amazing thing, because in my opinion of what I wanted at the time and what I thought it was going to be, at least at this point, it didn't necessarily work out that way. But I do not regret one breath of that. Those were some of the best times of my life. They were the most true, the most honest, the most real moments of my life, because when I was down there in LA and I had driven down there, like, not even having enough money to figure out where I was going to stay. And I was staying in a motel on like Hollywood Boulevard, just trying to do something. I was living my life, man. I was there and I was with me and we were doing it. Like, and I think back to that moment. I'm so proud of myself, because I was riding on fumes of hope, and just idealism and whatever. But sometimes that's what you gotta do. And like, by the way, when I was 21, I went down there with my friend. The day before I went down, now I just want to explain the kind of relationship I have with my father. And I'm going to share this story because I don't know if I actually shared this story in full. This is how crazy life is, okay? My parents, when they got married, were just high school sweethearts or whatever. They got married out of high school. They were just average kids, didn't really have much money. My dad was a logger, whatever. Eventually, when I was born, they got into real estate. My dad struggled for the first 3 years, and then he hung in there, and then he made a lot of money. And by the time I was about 14 years old, they'd become millionaires. We had built a $2.5 million house. My dad designed it with the architect, was living in an 8,000 square foot house with 3 backyards. And when I was, and this is the long and the short story, but when I was about 14 and a half, we lost it all. We lost everything. We had to give up the house. Both my parents had declared bankruptcy. My dad declared bankruptcy, couldn't buy anything, couldn't buy any real estate. He was a real estate agent and a real estate developer, very much limited him. He asked me if I would buy a house, take 10 grand of my money, put it into a house, my brother. I did that. I did that for him. I let him do it. Well, before I was going down to LA, he got me to sign off of the house, and I just thought it would be easier because I wasn't going to be around, so he could deal with it and whatever. Well, when he signed off the house, he cut me out of the deal, and he said, when I was going down to LA, he called me up like a day before, and he said, you're not doing this. I'm going to give you 2 grand. You can figure out what you're going to do. Meanwhile, I had loaned him 10 grand to build this house. We had flipped 3 houses. We had made $150,000, and he was going to give me 2 grand.
Yeah.
Out of the 10 grand that I had first of all put down to help him get out of his fucking bankruptcy. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I'm there and I'm on the call with him, and I say, you know what? Fuck you. You've done this my whole life. You're trying to control me. Absolutely not. I'm going to LA. You can figure it out. I hung up the phone. I didn't have any money. I didn't have him, nothing. And I drove down to LA and I did my life. And I didn't have his support. And we didn't talk for about 3 to 5 years, somewhere in there, 4 years maybe. We didn't talk even at all.
Yeah.
And he didn't give me a penny. And I just let it go. And I said, whatever, you know what? Like, the thing is you just do not know. And my point is that there's these moments in life where it's fucking crazy. That's crazy. And you could go and you could say, okay, you know what? I won't pursue my dream. I won't do this thing. I will buckle under the pressure that you're putting on me. Or you can say, fuck that, and go against society and go against everything. And there's these pivotal moments in your life. And I have to say this. Yes, there was hardship and difficult times in my 20s, but I loved my 20s, because in my 20s there's one thing that was absolutely undeniably true, and I will say this to my dying day. I was so true to my heart and my gut. I just would not bend on the fact that I was gonna be a filmmaker. I was gonna go out and I was gonna do it. And like, if I never make another film after this, I don't even care, man, because I went and I did that part of my life. And I'm never gonna look back and wonder and think, oh, if only, you know? And the thing is I remember in my 20s, and this is it's a long story there, but I remember being in my 20s, and I just remember going like, if I die today, I'm going to die happy, man. It's okay, because I'm living, right? And then there's many days where I had that moment, and I just knew that I was doing it. And you get a little older, and then you start thinking, oh man, maybe I should have made different choices. Maybe I should have been more responsible. But now, as I'm reminded, I see people's lives imploding, exploding, trying to do it right. And all of a sudden things are spinning out of control. And I'm like, no, man, you did it right. You're doing it right. Stay the course, your course. You don't know. You just don't know, guys. Like, any of us could just die at any moment. We just don't know. Yeah. But if you can be in the moment of death, I think, and be like, I'm living up to this point my full life, you've won. You've won every day. Yeah. That's the way I look at it. Yeah. I know that's a long story, but I feel like it demonstrates the point that I'm ultimately trying to make.
Yeah, I think you brought it around. I think you brought it around really, really nicely with the story and the point. What you're saying, what's really shown me is that, and in many ways, sort of like our last, kind of couple of podcasts that we've done, I feel like there's been a relationship between a lot of them. There usually is, but what I'm realizing is that with the sort of where we began with the show, with this title and this, staying centered in, a crazy world, it's like that center. What is that center? For you in that story, that center was, this is my dream, and nothing is going to stop me in pursuing it, giving it a shot, despite all of the unknowns, despite there's no guarantees, there's no, there's not necessarily a pot of gold waiting for you at the end, so to speak, right? But there's something deeper. There's something more, it's these invisibles, these things that don't have any kind of material substance to them, but it's these invisibles that when we listen to them, those invisibles of our nature, to go back to that are these guiding principles for us that say, it's like, it doesn't matter what happens out here. I am doing this because this has far greater value than anything that anyone could offer me. And it's that thing, or those things, those guiding principles of your nature. It is those things that keep you sane in a crazy world.
Yeah.
Because that's what you are anchored to. Like, there's, no matter what happens, you can be at peace with yourself, knowing that you lived by this. And that's not based on anything anyone else has said. This is reminding me a little bit of I think it was our podcast that we did on discipline, which was a really great one. I really liked that one, because we talked, that has a relationship to this. We talked a lot about how, for a lot of us, discipline is kind of this word that makes us like cringe and feel all kinds of guilt and shame about ourselves, because we feel we're not, disciplined people. And part of what was interesting about that one that I ended up walking away with was that, discipline is an upholder of what is truly of value to us. Part of the big problem with discipline is that we're so busy trying to live by other people's disciplines, right?
Yeah.
By like how other people choose to discipline themselves.
Yes.
Right. And that's where we get all, shitty about the whole situation, where we feel bad about it because it's all full of these shoulds. Oh, I should be doing this. I should be doing that. As opposed to living by our own discipline, which is our own path. Mm-hmm. Like we were saying earlier on, it's not about walking the path that somebody else did. It's yours. Mm-hmm. You should never try to be walking someone else's path. You can be inspired by what someone else has done.
Yeah.
And it may take you along some of the same things, but it's still going to be yours.
Yes.
It's never going to be exactly the same as how it was for somebody else. And I don't know, this was just something that came to my mind in this whole thing of it's these guiding principles. It's these the disciplines that we have for ourselves that uphold who we are, what is our nature in the world, and living and expressing that as fully as we can, as open-heartedly as we can. And it's those things that keep us centered mm-hmm. in any kind of craziness that's happening around us.
A lot of our talks recently have been, we've been talking about this, like your battlegrounds and your principles, and we've been talking a lot about all
and
this
your
stuff.
Boundaries and your
boundaries, yeah. And they all really are coming back down to the same point. I mean, I think you and I are both kind of in a period of our lives where we are both really learning how to be truly centered as artists. I was thinking about this earlier. It's kind of like when you're younger, you have at least I did, and I noticed this with a lot of young people. There's like it's this kind of passion and this just innocence to it all, this naivety about going for it. And you don't mm-hmm. really know the dangers and the consequences, which are part of what push you so fearlessly through it all. Mm-hmm. And then you get a little bit older, and then you start to realize the consequences, and sometimes you get a little taste of how real they are. And you start to go, ooh, okay, I know what people are talking about. I get a little, and that's that point where, you can walk away and you don't have to go any further down that road if you don't want to. But for those who hang in there, they have to overcome some stuff. They have to start going, okay, like, we got to start figuring out some things here, because there's not as many safety nets as there are. And I'm realizing that there's a lot more dangers out there than I once realized, and, so forth. I would say as you get older, you start to realize a little bit, this is my experience maybe, but how much more crazy the world is than you first realized when you were younger.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it was a lot about, I don't know, Disney movies and shit. I'm like, yeah, people are good. Things are wonderful. Things work out, But then as you get a bit older, you start to realize, some people are pretty fucked up. And some people are dangerous and they have bad intent. And they're a lot closer to home than you might think sometimes. Sometimes they're friends, sometimes they're family, sometimes they're colleagues. And, you start to go, okay, well, navigating these waters is a lot more dangerous than I once realized. Whereas you were swimming in shark-infested waters before, but you didn't know there were sharks, so you just swam, la-da-da-da-da, and everything's so lovely. And I think there's a certain point where sometimes you want to go back. You want to go back to the point before you knew there were sharks. Mm-hmm. But then at the same time, you're grateful that you know there's sharks, because now you're better prepared. But now that you know there's sharks, you're more scared. And so you kind of have to figure it out, right? But this is the thing. Staying centered in a crazy world is kind of like also not fearing the crazy of this world. Even a shark is not out to get you. It's not really out to get you. That's not really the intent. Like, a wild animal is not there solely to hunt you down like a horror movie. But the circumstances will put a predator or something like that and you in a position of confrontation. So as you get older, you can begin to position yourself in a better place, so you're not put in those types of confrontations. So you're not put in those dangerous spots. And becoming aware just means you're more mindful and safer. And I think there is definitely sometimes a pull for us to want to go back to ignorance and want to go back to innocence. But part of being an artist, I think, is venturing into losing your innocence, losing your ignorance, and venturing into this dangerous world to be able to come back to tell those tales, to come back experienced and knowledgeable as a kind of philosopher and a kind of warrior for everybody to benefit from. And that's part of your job. And so you have to really, there's a lot of self-work that's involved.
Yeah, it's about like kind of being able to still come back at the world and life with a kind of childlike energy and innocence, to still have gone through something, to have learned, to be wiser, but to be still undeterred.
Yes.
In following what you're calling.
Yeah.
And that's a challenge, that's maybe a conversation for another podcast, is like keeping that sort of childlike, Can
I just say, like, staying centered in that after you've experienced a crazy world can be very difficult.
Absolutely.
You can get what's the word where you get jaded, or you
just
get and you start to lose that, right? And I think as artists, we all get a little jaded, and it's part of our job to get over that and recapture what brought us into this in the first place, which is our center.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's so funny. Like, I remember in high school, I had this, one of my favorite teachers of all time. What's up, Shivi? I don't even remember what we were talking about at all. It's not important. But I made the comment, which is something that people say all the time. They go, well, ignorance is bliss, right? Ignorance is bliss. And then I just remember him, like, very sincerely going, is it? And I just went, because suddenly, like, I hadn't really challenged it. It's like, yeah, ignorance is bliss. Well, but it was such a great question to pose to a young mind at the time.
Yeah.
Because it's like, it's sometimes we long for this place where, because there was maybe a sense of lightness that we had at a certain period of time. But I mean, to give up wisdom, to give up valuable learning experiences. But yeah, it's the trick is not becoming jaded by what has happened, and I think that there is actually a way for us to go and to have these these challenging experiences that shift how we see the world, how we do things in the world. But to be able to come back from that, like you were saying, and still maintain that childlike wonder in our pursuits. But now it's not coming from a place of ignorance, but it's coming from a place of, I understand that there are risks. I understand that there are pitfalls, but I am going to do this anyways because this is still my guiding principle.
Mm-hmm.
And it can make us stronger in that, like there's a path where it makes us, where we are still not provoked by fear in our action, but we're just more intelligent about how we're doing it. But we also see the importance of I think this is really what I'm trying to say. Those experiences, when we see them, I think, in a correct light, show us just how important it is that we stay on the same path, that we stay the course. It's like, yeah, that kind of went a certain way, and that was hard. But what is my alternative?
Mm-hmm.
What is my? It can make us even more passionate and ferocious warriors on our path. As opposed to fleeing
Mm-hmm.
and deciding, what, I'm just gonna walk the path that somebody else wants me to do.
Yeah.
Because that's an even more terrifying risk, I think, especially for someone who's living by the philosophy of an artist.
All I know is that, when you don't follow your heart and you don't follow your gut, when you are willing to bend on those things, people can control you.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I know. I don't know much. I have my opinions, I have my passions, but I can tell you this. In my experience, if my dad gave me one gift, he taught me that, that I had to have extremely strong principles and I had to follow my heart and my gut. Otherwise, people could control me in the world. And, say what you will about him, have your opinions of him that you will. He's not perfect. I still love him. In spite of all that, I'm not even angry about it anymore. I mean, maybe I spoke with a little bit of like anger in that moment because I was going back to that moment, like, fuck you,
Yeah.
but like, honestly now, like I'm so past that. But, in his roundabout way, through his own life and his own experience, I have no judgment. But he, in his own way, might have been trying to service his ego to some degree, but he was also trying to protect me. I know to some degree he was trying to protect me.
Yeah.
And he did, in some ways, teach me the strength to be able to be the kind of person that will go his own way. And, anybody who has crossed my path, they know this about me. Like, I am very much that way. And, that is one of those things where, as painful as a lesson as that is, the fact that he had to play that role in my life to teach me that lesson, I don't know what this is all about. I don't know if and I'm going to go down a little bit of a crazy rabbit hole here just for fun. If I'm just a spirit who came to this life to learn something, to transform something, to get something out of this, maybe he was just a role that was an important part of my spirit awakening to something. And as far as I know, I still have the rest of today and I still have the rest of my life, whatever that is, to express whatever it is that I've been granted to this point. And I can tell you this, victimhood is a stage, and as a stage, You can sit in it for the rest of your life, or you can move past it. And there was a moment where I was a victim, and now I'm not a victim. I'm a champion of it. And the only way I look at it is great. This is a great gift. He gave me the gift of learning to follow my heart unapologetically and full out to the nth of what I know is possible. And I can say this about me. Challenge me on my heart. Try and put money up against me. Try and put anything up against me. You will not break me, because I know. Because that wasn't just money, man. That was love. That was my fucking father and a son who didn't feel loved. And in that moment, I had to say, no. I'm going to go my own way. I'm going to go my own way without the money, without the support, without the encouragement, without the love. And it was fucking heartbreaking. It broke my fucking heart at the time, but it mended back stronger. So all I can say is that if anybody's in a victim moment, this is a stage of your life. And you can sit in that and you can die in it, and it can be your ditch. Or you can dig yourself out of that fucking thing, get up and start moving and thank that ditch that you were in and go, look, this is what I was given, you know? And look, the best people in the world always do that. Look at every history, like every autobiography, every biography. Somebody went through some shit and they dug themselves back out of that hole and they kept going. So victimhood is a stage, in my opinion. And how that relates to this crazy world is this crazy world will victimize you. It will. People will come at you. People will say things. People will do things. People will steal. People will cheat. They will lie. They will break their word. This is going to happen somewhere along the line. If you put yourself out there enough, guaranteed.
Yeah.
So what are you going to do? You're just going to get better at holding people accountable. You're going to get better at trusting your gut about who you're dealing with. You're going to get better at following your heart. Or you're going to die in your ditch of victimhood. You get that choice all the time. And I come back to that constantly. This is just another moment where I'm going, well, hammer the point home, Brandon, because that's what I truly believe.
And I mean, and the thing is too, is that on the flip side of it is like, you can die in your ditch of what you uphold too.
Oh, sure.
But it's like, but which one do you want to die in?
Yes.
You know, like, do you want to die in a ditch of victimhood, or do you want to die in a ditch of like, you know what, I've stood for what I stood for.
Yeah.
And I take nothing back. Right? Like, that's to me a much better ditch to die in.
I agree. And you know what? Either way, it's kind of a ditch anyway. But like, it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be glorious. You know.
Yeah.
Like,
but that like that guiding sort of your guiding nature, your guiding principle. Like, it's like that's in many ways the ditch is kind of an apt metaphor for that exact thing, because it really is. It's just like, what is the ditch you're willing to die in? What is the thing that, like, you know, you're willing to like compromise on all sorts of other things, you know, because they're not that important and you don't care truly all that much. But where's that spot where someone or something or whatever it is pushing you, trying to control you, trying to make you something other than what you are? At what point do you say, no, you know what? It doesn't even matter what happens to me at this point.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what happens to me, because I'm not moving from this place. I will not compromise on this. I will not lie about this. I cannot lie about this and who I am and what I'm doing. This is where I make my stand. And that's no matter what happens, no matter what the result, maybe I eat shit real bad, but you know what? I say, fuck it. I'm happy to eat that shit.
Quoted.
Or, you know, or you come out on top of it.
Yeah.
Right? That's that either, but that's the thing though. It's not about that. It's not about win or lose, right? Because actually there is no lose. That's the whole point, is that no matter what, I don't lose in this situation. Yeah. Because either I win upholding my principles, or I die upholding my principle. I die upholding that. And in many ways, that's more powerful.
Yeah.
You know, like like our the most sort of immortal names in our history are not necessarily the great conquerors, you know, like the great, like, sort of warlords and whatever. Yeah, they have their place in the history books, but the people that we most cite and refer to and inspire us as people are people who died for something truly incredible, something truly human. You know, that was beyond conquest, that was beyond territory and material. It was guiding principles. You know, these are the people who showed us really what that was all about.
That's so much what this talk is about. It's about having principles in a world that wants to push you around and do stuff. It's, you know, staying centered. This is the thing. I think what this conversation is really opening up is it's opening up the concept of what is your center. What is the thing that tethers you from one moment of your life to the next? You know, what is it? I mean, for me, it wasn't necessarily, I wouldn't say, I think it's a confusion to think it's like to be a filmmaker or something, or maybe at one point you could call it like to pursue my dream. I wouldn't say it's necessarily the same thing now, but it's like this to explore my passion, to explore this curiosity, to explore this thing inside of me, this burning desire. I would call it to explore this burning desire. Is like, if there's one thing that tethers me in this life, is that I seem to, from one moment to the next, I don't drop that one thing, which is to explore this burning desire. Just explore it. Like, I don't care what comes of it. I don't, you know, I mean, there is this part of me that's like, I really hope it works out, but, you know, I'm not going to lie about that, but it's still enough to make me go down roads that most people wouldn't go down, because I'm not fixated on the result. I'm fixated on the experience and the importance of my life expression in it. And I would say that that's probably what centers people. In my experience, I don't know if this is true for you guys. I'm throwing this out there as my experience. I think what might help you find your center is, like, if this moment, like in this moment, like what you express is important enough for you not to bend, you will do it. You know, and if you can continue to honor that, I think you will get good results. Good things happen from that. Wonderful things occur. It's also very polarizing. It will push the people out of your life that are the crazy makers, and it will pull the people in that are the ones who can get behind that and can help you and assist it. But, you know, that's part of the challenge in this life, is like, so many people think they know the way.
Yeah.
So many people. And sometimes it's our parents, and sometimes it's our friends, and sometimes it's our brothers and sisters, and, you know, sometimes it's our enemies. But people think they know the way. And you just have to remind yourself that nobody knows the way. And the only way is the one you're discovering. And the only way you're going to discover it, in my opinion, is through your heart and your gut. Whatever that is for you, I think you can relate to that. So listen to that, because I think that is the thing that's going to keep you away from getting pulled into the craziness of all this, right? But at the same time, you got to participate in society and culture and all that, or you don't. But if you want to participate in it and you want the benefits of it, you got to participate to some degree.
Yeah.
But at the same time, while you're in it, maybe practice stepping outside of it and looking at yourself in it, like almost like you're looking at yourself in the Matrix and going, okay, this is the Matrix, and I can see that this is how the system works. So I'm playing the system because I know this is the system, but at the same time, you're like, I'm just doing this. Like, I'm just playing a part because this is what I need to do right now. Because if I don't, then people will be like, you're acting too weird, you're acting too crazy.
Yeah.
And it's simply about meeting people in rapport and socializing. But sometimes, you know, you might recognize that the people around you are acting nutty, but you're going, okay, That's fine. I'll play this with you. I'll play this game. It's role play. But then when we're done and I'm going home or I'm on my own, I'm going to step out of it and I'm not going to be in it anymore. I'm not going to take it with me. But for the time being, if everybody's partying and drinking and I want to participate, well, I'll party and drink with you. But I'm not going to get, I'm not going to, like if you can recognize that that's a game, then you don't have to get caught into the crazy. You can still, that's the thing about crazy. It's a game. You can play it and you can step out of it. But if you get lost in it and you forget you're in it, all of a sudden you become a crazy.
Yeah, when you stop, when you no longer realize that it's a game, when you start taking it as
too seriously.
When you take it seriously, like this shit's real, and it's like it's not.
No,
none of it is. You can choose to. It's a game, and you can choose to play whatever part of it that you want to, but not losing sight of what it actually is. Yeah. It's
a game you can also leave at any time, if you want to, but a lot of the time we don't want to because the game gives us certain benefits. We want to, we get addicted to the game. We get addicted to the hit of the game.
Yeah. Well, it's like just as like sort of like an example, there are groups of people who, they really love to gossip. They really love to talk about, people in their lives and just, what's happening with them and all that kind of shit, like that's, but it's interesting because when you listen to people have a conversation like that, even if you just overhear something, people talking about other people, there's this way that they're talking about it where it's so serious. It's just like, oh my God, it's like these people are living for this shit. Mm-hmm. And for me, someone like myself, I'm just so not interested in being a part of that, right? Because but it's a game. Like it's a completely meaningless thing to do. Right? Like I'm using gossiping because I feel like it's just so obviously a pointless and meaningless exercise. Mm-hmm. Right? But people get so invested into it, right? And it's not a game that I choose to play. And I used to have friend groups where, that kind of shit used to happen all the time. And I just disliked it so much. So I removed myself from that game. Because it didn't feel good to play that game, so that's just one little thing, one little example.
There's so many, but it's a good one.
Yeah,
I like it.
I mean, I feel like we've kind of run this course, so
we've run it. I think we've run it enough. Well, let's mention the beer.
Yeah,
and then we'll wrap this baby.
What did you think about this one?
I actually enjoyed it. You were right. It was in a bit of an experience. It's very flavorful, but I enjoyed it. It was, it's unique, but it's enjoyable. Let me put it that way.
Yeah. So this, and again, we're not sponsored by these people in any way. We just have a tradition of the conversation started over beers, and so we just continue to have a beer and record it. So this is from Dead Frog Brewery in Langley, British Columbia, and this is their limited edition Mandarin Orange Kettle Sour. So I'm sometimes not, I'm a little weary of sours, but I don't know, when I saw this one, it looked like it could be pretty good. And also,
I'm actually surprised it's a sour because usually I don't like them, and this one was pretty good. I think because the sour is tame enough.
Yeah.
You can definitely taste the Mandarin. Yeah,
no, definitely. And I thought, just like, it's kind of around the holidays, so a little like the Mandarin Orange that had some appeal to it. So, I've been enjoying it. It's been good.
It's been nice. It's definitely spurred on a talk.
Definitely.
Okay, so let's do this. What did we get? What did we learn? We're on this. We're definitely on this path right now of holding your ground and staying centered and. Drawing your lines and figuring out where you are within it. Like that's a big if you listen to the last several talks we've had, that's been so much about what it's about.
Yeah.
With this particular one, let me wrap up first, and then you can finish it off here.
Okay.
I would say that, in my life personally, things are a little crazy. They've been a little crazy right now, but they've been crazy this whole year. This has been a crazy fucking year. It's been a whole lot of crazy makers, and a lot of pressures, and a lot of interesting and wild things have occurred. So for me, this one is so much about, I think when the world gets crazy enough, you start to go, maybe it's not me. Maybe it's you guys. Like, maybe you're the ones that are crazy, and I'm the one that's actually got my shit figured out. And that's kind of what I've started to come to in my life is, I'm not saying that I have everything worked out, but what I would say is that there are certain guiding principles in my life that have kept me on a true course. And what I've come to at this point, and it's kind of wonderful that it's all at the end of the year, it's all this nice little wrap up with a nice little bow, which is this kind of, I know what matters to me. I know where I need to be guided from. So no matter what's going on for me, I'm very connected to that. And I would really say it is much along those lines of pursuing the experience of my burning passion, whatever, my burning desire. It's just pursuing the experience of my burning desire. And that's the best way I can put it. And I didn't think about that. I just came up with that in the moment based on this talk. And so all I would say is that, if you start looking at your life and you start looking at what's important to you and what has been important to you and what you followed or not followed, and you'll know when you didn't follow something that was good, and you'll know when you did. And start to try to deduct maybe like, what is that for you? What is that thing? And you articulate it in your own way, and I think that will be your way. But that's your center, That's something, at least it's a piece of your center that you can kind of hang on to. And when the world gets a little crazy around you, maybe trust the fact that that thing is actually where you need to be. That's your line. That's your core. That's your center. And you got to keep your core full, and you got to keep coming back to it.
Mm-hmm.
So all I can say is the world's going to be crazy. All sorts of different pressures and different demands and different things are going to happen. Age is going to bring on different things for you, all that. But try to figure out what's the thing that you can kind of keep coming back to, your touchstone, your touchback, the thing that you can go, okay, well, as long as I do this, I'm kind of on my path. And I think that will help you. And it will help you as one little thing, as one little tool in your belt to kind of keep you on track, whatever your track is. And there is no right track. There's no right way. It's your way. And I'm very excited to see where that leads you if you ever come back and share that with us. But I really do believe this is one of those talks that is going to land with somebody, and they're going to come back and go, there was that talk, or, maybe it wasn't this talk, maybe it was a different one, but there was a talk, and it just got me right back to center. And that's what I hope for every conversation, because in some ways, deep down, I'm speaking to myself at 16 going, man, I hope this helps you.
Yeah.
So if someone's out there who's like me, there you go.
Well, I mean, sometimes in these conversations, Brandon, I'm speaking to myself right now. I'm saying things that I need to hear for myself,
sure,
and reminding myself of some important things. And yeah, it seems interesting that I feel like this is something that I actually know should be quite familiar with to a certain degree, because, whenever I'm feeling really squirrely, whenever I'm feeling at my most anxious and stressed out, it's because I am not connected with or listening or remembering the things that are the most important to me, that are truly the most important to me, and that as we've been saying, as we sort of coined this thing, the guiding principle or our core nature, where that wants to take us. We're not listening to what that thing is and what that thing wants us to do. because what that thing is bigger, is so much bigger than, well, I want to make films, or I want to paint pictures, or make music, or have a family, or build a business, or, this is all artistry. Life is artistry. That's what we're here to talk about. Because it's so much bigger than that. What you do is an expression of that guiding principle. It comes out of that thing. And that thing is going to be what keeps us from getting sucked into the craziness, and all that comes with it, is you bring ourselves back to that place. Whoa, what am I really here for? What is my fire in this world? And I want to this is an exercise that I do in workshops and with classes, and it was a profound thing for me when I first did this, and I still find it to just be incredibly powerful. But I want you to take out a piece of paper when you get an opportunity and ask yourself, what do you really want? Right? Write that at the top of the page. What do I really want? I want you to answer that question. Try not to think about it too much. Just answer that question. What do I really want? Answer it in a couple of sentences. Now I want you to look at what those two sentences are. Why that? Answer that question. Why that? Again, another sentence, couple of sentences. Once you have that down, why that? Answer that. Keep asking why that, why that, why that, until you cannot go any further, until you, in your bones and in your heart, you're just like, because this is all I want. Bring yourself to that point, and you'll have an idea of what that guiding thing is for you. What is the most important thing for you in your life? Really do this. Really do this. Don't shortchange yourself. Don't skip this. Really bring yourself to that place, and you will be so grateful that you did, because everything that you do in life and everything that you've been doing in your life, you'll discover, comes from this place.
Thanks for listening to the show. If you got something out of this, if you feel it improved your life or your journey in any way, please take a moment to subscribe, leave a review, or share the episode.
You can also support us on Patreon, where we have tons of great bonuses. You are the ones that make the show possible and help us to thrive. Thank you for joining us.